Hello and welcome to today's painting demonstration. I'm going to show you how to paint a crimson sunrise over a foggy meadow. That's what we're doing today with some stylish trees. One more in the foreground, lots behind, underneath a really warm, diffused atmosphere. So that'll be fun. If you're interested in the reference photo that I'm using or inspiration photo that I'm using for this piece, then it is going to be in my art community Discord, and the link is in the description below. So I'm going to get started with my big soft oval wash brush and the gold underpainting color. I'm going to pay attention to the values that I have in my reference photo, at least the ones that I want to follow, because each brush stroke from the very beginning layer all the way up to the end is going to set us up for success. The horizon line is all the way down at a third of the painting. It's going to be a big sky scene. And I just have some aspects of the painting, some pencil lines marked out for myself, so I put them in the right spots. I'm making sure that those pieces or these shapes are not just represented, but represented in a way where they create lead lines that take your eye to the center focal point, which is going to be the sun rising behind this tree. I don't know what kind of tree it is. It doesn't look like an oak tree. The foreground is going to be pretty heavily shadowed, but there is going to be some texture. Little bushes and such. I added a lot more oak trees in the back of my version, so I really want to experiment with more of those stylish geometric shapes, negative shapes in trees. That's our foreground. Now, this is one of those complicated sunrise skies where there's not a lot of blue and the clouds go from darker than the sky color to lighter than the sky color, which sometimes can make my head spin. There's something dramatic like that. It's going to be real nice. Now I'm going to add more water to my brush and just gently gloss over all of the white areas, just getting rid of the white on this painting. Goodbye. Still see everything. Okay, there we go. Now I'm gonna start in the sky. Done with that big filbert brush there. I'm gonna switch over to our small filbert brush. And the colors are quite complicated, but I'm gonna start with the intense hot colors. So this sunrise gets much lighter towards the horizon line, so I'm going to pick up some white, add just a little bit of the yellow to it, and I'm going to paint in the horizon line. Try not to completely block out any of the detail that we want to hold on to for later. It's going to be white right behind these branches right here, and then it's going to fade to a more intense yellow as we get further away from that. Putting in a couple of interesting shapes with the white. Now as we go up higher, there's going to be more pink, and then it's going to transition into actually a very strange color. It's like a red purple. I'm going to take that peach and go above the tree here. And this is where I'm going to start to transition to a cooler color. Only cooler relative to everything else that's going on. I'm going to take some cerulean blue and mix it with the white and get a nice light color. Very, very light. I didn't even clean out my brush because that's okay if some of that warm tone gets in there. I'm going to paint up next to this big dramatic cloud shape, defining the edge and just following it up to the edge of the painting, and then I'm going to drag some of that color down. I'm going to do the same thing up here, this cloud, defining the edge with this bluish color, and then I'm going to drag it down. When I say drag it down, I mean I am just like smearing it on there, doing some dry brushing. To blend it at the end. Everything underneath it is dry, which makes this possible. Okay, so this color here, I'm going to add just a touch of magenta to it. That was more than a touch, that was way too much. Touch too much. A little bit more blue. I still have some orange in my paintbrush. That's actually going to help us out a bunch. I'm going to start from the very top of the painting and come down with this perfectly muddy purple mauve color. I'm going to be defining the edge of our cloud shapes as well as going into them just to create some more dimension and to set them in the scene. Now this color needs to come lighter, so I'm going to add more white and blue. Gently blending the spot where they meet and then taking that lighter color up a bit. Now if you notice the paint lifting off, then you just need to give it a little bit more dry time before you drag paint over the top of it. taking the slightly darker color, and I am just dragging it in from the edges of the painting. So our light source is almost in the middle, not quite in the middle. Now that I have those lovely colors in, I'm going to go back up to the cloud shapes. I'm going to get the filbert pretty much rinsed out. This cloud here, I'm going to keep it mostly red-orange. I'm going to add a little bit of magenta as we get towards the outer edge. Going to overlap and underlap the area that I have designated for this. Okay, here's that touch of magenta at the edge. That color is powerful, does a lot. Okay, I added a little bit of water to the brush to spread the magenta a little bit further. I'm going to take some white and make sure that all the edges of my clouds don't have any pencil lines and also are nice and wispy. Now I'm doing that with white first because I do plan on tinting them yellow, but the yellow will not sit nicely over the colors that are here, so. Okay, so I'm done with the sky for now. I'm going to move into the very, very background trees. It's a pretty narrow strip of color, but it's nice and diffused and warm. Everything's going to be really based in this orangey red color. And that blue, actually. That's because that's what we're going to use to diffuse. It's white. And that cerulean blue, so I'm going to get that over here. Some red, some yellow, a little bit more white, and a touch of gold. I added a little bit of magenta just to desaturate it and a little bit more white to lighten it up after the magenta made it darker. There's a lot of back and forth when mixing paint. There we go. That's the color that I want. And it's such a small... It's a really small area, so I'm going to use a paintbrush. I said paintbrush, I meant point brush. It's also a paintbrush, so that's fine. Number 2 point. I'm gonna just gently go around the areas that are going to be in the next layer. I'm going to lighten up that edge, the one that fades into the sunrise. It's way out there. Got some white and some yellow. And then it'll be darker where it's the some trees coming up. This is all going to be obscured by what's in the foreground. There we go. Now we can get the next layer going. better lighten that up even more. A little lighter, a little warmer. Okay, now the background trees. We're gonna go darker. Magenta, gold. See where that gets us. Now some ultramarine blue on one side of it. And I'm gonna gently mix towards the other side to give us a nice gradient. Now I'm going to add yellow to the lighter side and mix that back down the other way. I'm going to start with this lighter color. A little bit of gold, a little bit of white. I want to warm that up a bit. That's better. That's what we're talking about. I'm going to start the near side of the tree, near the sun side. And I'm going to both follow the pencil lines that I have put down and also extend out from that. Okay, so now that I'm done with the background trees and I've made sure to select darker and darker colors as I move away from the sun side, okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I need to switch to a bigger brush as I move into the foreground because I'm going to need some bigger brush shapes. Also probably going to need to mix more of these colors as we move into the foreground. Now the edges are going to be darker here and darker here. And I'm going to make some shapes that are more vague as we move into the foreground. I'm going to put a neutral, I don't know, I guess this would be dirt color for these spots here. So I'm going to be painting around them, negative painting around them as I move forward. So I want them to be pretty well taken care of. And everything else is pretty much going to be different bush textures. Okay, so I'm going to start with the darker side and move my way in. This side will be a little bit lighter. The sun is more towards the right. Taking a little tinge of that ultramarine blue and adding it to the gold and the yellow is going to give you just like a very subtle impression of a green forming among all of that yellow and orange, and that'll give you just a little bit more dimension and texture. But also overlapping your brush strokes is going to build up a lot of texture too. Brushing a little bit more green into the middle of the painting, and then just incorporate it into a couple of other places before I add some grass shapes. Just some grass shapes here and there overlapping these light areas of dirt, and I'm going to drag a little bit of the darkness onto the dirt as well. And then we'll be done with our ground mass. Then we can move into that main silhouette, and then onto the negative shapes and the trees, which isn't the most interesting part, or at least my favorite part. Hey, remember that white we put in the sky? Before I forget about it completely, I'm gonna tint it yellow, like I promised. I could just use the filbert brush. I could also use a smaller point as well on the side, but I'm gonna try to keep it loose and expressive. I'm not gonna worry if I underlap or overlap the white shape that I put down. These are super bright final brush strokes that are going in the sky. Hey, you know, I'm feeling adding some yellow into these little light areas of, they're either dirt or they're kind of puddles. I don't know. I'm gonna tint a little bit of that yellow, a little bit of the middle of the painting. Just warm that up. Alright, now some tree silhouette. It's going to be a lot darker than, it's going to be here like this dark. I am going to make it more red and more saturated where the sunspot would be, which is right behind these two branches. And for this part, I am going to be using a small point. I think the number 1 is going to do it. You know, as I'm looking at all this branch work, I'm thinking that script brush might be the call on this foreground tree. There are some really small shapes happening in there, and I'd rather be err on the side of caution since it is our focal point. Okay, so that gives you a good idea of what magic can unfold when you use a bold move, the bold move of using a script brush for trees. It's not the popular choice, but I think it's worth the time invested. All the little intricate details. You're not going to be painting in negative shapes because you're not going to need to, because you can just leave holes as you I want to use the term stab for the motion used. It's almost like felting. The stabbing motion that you use when you're felting for the script brush, and you get really, really tiny intricate details. You can put a lot of branches and branch works in, and it is very convenient to be switching the gradient that you're using, and then that gives you a lot of dimension. It really feels like a three-dimensional tree. But don't forget to put some like just large areas, just thick paint, because that would be where the tree is becoming more three-dimensional and coming around towards you. So there's more foliage, not just on the sides, but in front of and behind the tree, especially on these big round deciduous trees. So I'm going to paint in some negative shapes on these oaks back there. I don't want to use the script though, it's just a little too big. These are small shapes, and I'm pretty darn sure I know exactly how I want them to look, so I'm going to be picky. Particular. I got some white and some cerulean. There's no cerulean. White, cadmium yellow, and a little bit of this dirty grunge that we have all over the place in this painting and on our palette, which is just going to make it look more convincing, which is fine by me. And just very lightly, I'm going to make sure to get these structures that I penciled out on purpose. I wanted to remember them. And I'm also going to add some other shapes. Actually seems a little too yellow. I'm going to need to orange that up a bit. Changing the color that I'm using based on where I am in the trees, or what is behind the branches that I'm popping a hole into. That's something that's kind of easy to forget about. See the tiniest lint hair right here in this yellow paint? did not see it before. It's driving me wild. I'm gonna remove that. Got a clean paintbrush. Oop. And some clean water, and I can just scrub that off there. And it has let go without any damage to the surrounding paint. Thank goodness. Okay, just fixed up a little bit of the texture work in the foreground. Now I'm perusing the landscape to see if there's anything that I feel like needs fixing. But as I look at this, the composition stands out to me as being very, very good. It zigs and then zags right into the focal point, which would be the light that's coming through the branches, the warm parts of this tree. And then it comes, the foreground zigzags up into that same spot. All the edges are a little bit darker, kind of holding you in the scene, and I feel like there's a lot of detail to look at in the middle of our painting. So that's fun. That was fun. It's definitely different. It's different than what I've painted before, which is the goal, right? That and the overarching goal of getting 200 of these done by October, but we'll see about that. That seems pretty bold. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this painting adventure and supporting my work. I hope you enjoyed this painting process video, and until next time, happy painting!